Hello, today we're going to talk about how to create prints in Photoshop, and we're going to look at how to create repeated or overall prints, as well as placement or engineered prints. So repeated or overall prints you have looked at before when we used Object Pattern Make tool in Adobe Illustrator. So basically you take one or several motifs and then you repeat them in many different ways. So in Photoshop, we're going to be looking at some other methods of creating overall prints. So we're going to use a new feature which is called View Pattern Preview, and it's new to Photoshop 2021, and it's actually really easy to use, and it allows you so many different design possibilities. So we're going to be creating an overall print using Photoshop in this demo. We're also going to learn how to create a placement print. So the placement print is placed specifically within the pattern piece, and it does not repeat overall as a motif. So you can have them symmetrical or asymmetrical, but they're engineered and placed within a specific area of a garment. So here's an example of a McQueen dress. You can see the final dress, and then you can also see how the print was engineered to be placed within the specific pattern shape or the pattern piece. One example is to create a panel or an artwork that's big enough to cover your fabric and then put it or paste it inside of the pattern piece. The pattern piece would be digitized in Gerber or PAD or Lectra systems, and then you would be able to open that scan in Photoshop, and then you would be able to add your artwork inside. So the artwork has to be as big as the pattern piece or a little bit bigger to make sure it fits, and then you're going to paste it into the pattern shape inside to get the print. Another way of doing this is to print the artwork edge to edge. So instead of printing the artwork just in the shape of the pattern piece, you could just print the artwork without the actual shape of the pattern piece, and doing this will allow you to have placement print for multiple sizes of your dresses. So if you have small, medium, large, then you could just use the same printed panel to cut out all of the dresses. So the total printable width, it's usually 54 inches, and depending on your style, you could fit 27 inches for the front and 27 inches for the back. Obviously, if you have something very wide or flared, then you won't be able to fit front and back into the 54 inches. So it kind of depends on the style. But if you are able to fit front and back, then you're saving money this way. So usually 54 inches is the width of the printable fabric, but it also depends on the fabric content and fabric name, so it could vary. Art of Wear is from Montreal, and then also designyourfabric.com is from Toronto. So if you visit these fabric printing suppliers, they also have design tools. So for example, they have a legging template to which you can upload your picture, and then it shows you a 3D preview of what your design would look like. So I encourage you to visit Art of Wear and upload some artwork to see what it would look like 3D. You can check out, they have dresses, kimonos, leggings, even baby clothes. So it's like really fun. And it's also a good learning experience to upload and see your work 3D. So for the following demo, you're going to need to download from the Assignments tool your Prints Demo zip folder, inside of which you're going to see all of the JPEGs and PSD files that we're going to use for the demo. And you also need to download Photoshop Patterns Demo, which is the Word document, in which I go over step-by-step instructions, which I will also do in this video. So these two files you can find under the Photoshop exercises on your assignments tool on the Blackboard. So let's start working. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you what you will have inside of the Photoshop Prints zip folder. So when you unzip it, you're going to see the dress block, the iJPEG, the grass, and then Dover swatches. The Dover swatches are available for you to use for your final project if you want to. So there's many different prints that you can actually just use as is, or you can recolor them if you want. So those are there for you as well. So I'm going to begin with the first demo. So I'll open Photoshop. Then I'm going to go to File, New. I'll click on Print. The file size is going to be 8.5 by 11. So that's what I have because I can click on letter and I'll have 8.5 by 11 inches. But I'm going to change it to be 200 pixels per inch. And that's because when you're printing on fabric, you only need 200 pixels per inch. You don't have to have it any higher. So the first thing we're going to look at is how to create your own gradient so you can use it with your custom color options. So you're going to go to Window Gradient. So Window Gradients will display the gradients palette. Here we are. And you can see there are some that are already pre-made for you that you can use. But to create your own, you're going to click on the plus button at the bottom, which is basically your Create New Gradient button. And then as the default, you're going to see a black and white colors here that you can then change. So I'm going to double click here. Let's say pick red. And then I'm going to double click on this, and then I can pick another color. I don't know, let's say this fuchsia. And then I will click OK. So here I can add more colors. To add more colors, you just simply click at the bottom, and then you can add another color, and so on. Here I can click and add another color. And let's say this one. And so you can also move these bars here to rebalance the mixing of the colors. And if you change your mind, you can just click and drag away and it'll get rid of that particular color tab. So you can keep adding, deleting, and remixing the tabs. This little diamond icon changes the balance of them. So you see how I can change the balance between the yellow and the fuchsia. So many things you can do here to adjust it. Finally, when you're done, you can give it a name. So I'm going to call this Candy. And then I'm going to click on New, and then I'm going to click on OK. So if I scroll down at the bottom of my gradients palette, I'm going to see my new gradient. And if I put my mouse over it, it'll say Candy. So that's how I know that's the one that I created. Then let's see how we can apply it. So to apply it, you're going to use the gradient tool. Now you can put it all over the whole page, or you can just make a rectangular marquee and then make a selection. And then using the gradient tool, you just have to click and drag to apply it. Now this will affect the look of it. So the direction and the length that you click and drag will affect the look of it. So if I go like this, it'll be like this. If I go like that, it'll start from there. Also, there is a linear. There is radial. And there's other types too. So it depends where you start and for how long you drag, it's going to change the look of it. Actually, I think I forgot to click on the candy. So I want the candy one. So that's the candy one. And so here you can see what I have. So this is in the radial form, and then let's try it in the linear form. So if I go like this, then you can see all of my colors in the candy, or if I go like this, it'll change the direction. So this is the first part of your assignment. You're just going to create a new gradient. So we're going to look at how you can create your own color swatch. So you have to go to Window Swatches. And then you can see already there's a bunch of colors to choose from, and there's many folders that you can open and see what colors are inside. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new folder for myself. So here is the new folder button. So you click on the Create New Folder button, give it a name. So Zoran Custom. And it's open, right? So you can see it's open right now. So the new swatches that I create will go inside of that folder. So first you're going to use the eyedropper tool, and then using the eyedropper tool you're going to pick a color you want. So you can see in the foreground color box at the bottom of the tools, you can see what color I clicked on. So let's say I like this peachy color, and then it'll show up in the foreground color box in the tools. And then to save this, you're just going to click on the plus button here, create new color swatch. I'm going to call it peach, so then it's easier for me to find later. Click OK, and then you can see I've just added it inside of the Zorin custom folder. Let's do just one more quickly. So I want this pink. It'll show up here. I can click on the plus sign, call it pink, click OK, and then it'll be created inside of the Zorin custom folder. Another way to create your own color would be to double click on the foreground color box, pick the color you want, let's say light pink, click OK, it'll show up here. You're going to click on the plus, call it light pink, and then it'll show up here inside of the Zorin custom folder. So I can open and close that folder to see my colors. So this is the best way to organize your own colors, so that way you can easily find them. You actually don't even have to save this. This palette will be available no matter what new file you create or no matter what old file you open. Your custom name swatches will still be available for you to see. There is a possibility to export them by going to export. So you would highlight the swatches you want like this, and then you would go to export swatches. But that's not really necessary. It's only if you want to export your swatches to use them between different Photoshop versions, or to even send them to somebody else. But you don't really have to save them or do anything like that, because they will be available between different files regardless. So next thing we're going to learn is how to create prints in Photoshop. So for that, I'm going to go to open my zip folder and select the iJPEG and go to open with Adobe Photoshop. So here I want to just create a repeated print using the eye motif. So I can close gradients and swatches. I don't need that anymore. But I'll just keep my layers. So the first thing, I'm going to select the part I wish to keep, which is just this part of the image, and then I'm going to go to image crop. And then the easiest way would be to go to select all, edit, define pattern, and that's really all you have to do. So edit, define pattern, call it eye, click OK. Then I'm going to go back, create a new layer in my demo file, and then I'm just going to go to edit fill. So edit fill, or you can use the bucket tool. So edit fill, I'm going to choose not the foreground color, but I'm going to choose pattern. And I'll go all the way down, and then here is the one that I created. I named it eye, so here you can see it's called eye. Then I click on that and I select OK, and then it'll fill it. So this layer will be called eye. So it's pretty straightforward. You just go to edit define pattern and it'll give you a straight column repeat. Now I will show you how you can create a layer with a smaller or bigger pattern tile size. So one way to do this would be just to go here and change the image size to be smaller. So let's say like 3 inches as opposed to 6, and then you would have to redefine the pattern. But that takes too long. So instead of doing that, there's a much easier way to do it. So to change the size of the pattern tile, you can actually use the FX button. So I'll show you that right now. So first I'm going to create a new layer. I call it small eye. I'm going to fill this layer with white, or actually you can fill it with any color, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to use the paint bucket here. Then I'm going to go to FX at the bottom of the layer palette, so that's the layers tile, and then I'm going to select pattern overlay. So from here I'm going to select the latest pattern that I made, which is the eye, and then you can see that you can easily change the scale. So you can make the scale 200%, 93%, 47%, 37%. So obviously you can change it to whatever size you want. So let's say I want mine to be like around 40%. So then I click OK. So this is a layer style, so I wouldn't be able to shade inside of this. So in order for me to like shade it with the brush, I would have to first rasterize this layer. So what you do is you have that layer selected, and then you go to right click, and then you say select rasterize layer style. So right now it just appears as a normal layer, and then you can actually paint inside of it like so and shade it. So now I have rasterized the layer style, and now I just have a normal layer. So far you're going to have the gradient, the eye, and the small eye. So that's how you can change the pattern tile size to make it smaller. Next, we're going to learn how to use pattern preview method to create overall prints in Photoshop. So this is the new feature for the latest Photoshop. So the first thing, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this one pattern preview method. Pattern preview method. So once we create our design, we're going to put it inside of this layer. So the first thing you have to do is create your tile. So the tile can be any size. It can be 2 by 2 inches, it can be 5 by 5, or 10 by 10 inches, depending on the repeat that you want to have in the pattern. So I'm going to go to File, New. In my case, I'm going to create 3 by 3 inches. So I'm going to change this to inches. Here I'll put 3, here I'll put 3. And then as you remember, we said you only need 200 pixels per inch when you're working with inkjet fabric printers. So I'm going to change the resolution to be 200, and then I'm going to click on Create. So here's my tile. So the background, you can leave it white, or you can give it a particular color. So let's say I want to give it some color, and then I could just use the foreground color bucket to click my background color here. So now instead of white, my print will have a light blue background. Next, you can just keep adding your elements, but I recommend that you add them all in a separate layer, so that way you can use the Move tool to move them independently from each other, which will then allow you to change your design. So let's say I want to use the Shape tool, let's say a triangle, and then I will want to create a triangle here. I'm going to change this to be yellow, and I'm going to change the outline to be, I don't know, blue, and I want the line to be solid and not dashed. So that's my first element. And then really I can just add whatever I want. But before I start adding other things, I'm going to go to View, Print Preview. So, sorry, View, Pattern Preview. So you go to View tab, go all the way down, and then you'll click on the Pattern Preview. You will click on OK. And now if you zoom out, you're going to see this pattern repeated. And also with the Move tool, I can now actually move it, and then it'll move accordingly. So then you just keep adding. So let's say another thing I want to add is, let's say, I don't know, an ellipse. So I'm going to make an ellipse here, and it doesn't even have to be inside of the rectangle of the tile. It'll still work and repeat itself properly, which is really quite amazing. So here I'm just going to change this one a little bit in terms of the colors. And also you can move this one as well. So it's just really totally amazing what you could do. So that's why I put it in a separate layer. So let me just go back and make one more thing. So I'm going to go back to the shape tools, but I'm going to use the custom shape tools. And then if you go on top, there's lots of different ones. There's flowers, there's boots, there's leaves. Okay, so let's see what's under flowers. So let's say I want to make this one here. So then I can just click and drag, and then it'll give me that flower. I can change the line, or actually I don't even have to have an outline here. I'll just have a solid color, let's say, like that. And now as well, I can move that too. See, like I can move this around. So it's pretty much endless. You can move them around and change your design. You can actually even make a new layer and then use the brush, and you can draw even using your brush or paste a photo or whatever you wanted. So if I added something here, that would also work as well. So when you are done, all you have to do is go to flatten this. So I'm going to just go to flatten image. So you, again, you click here, which is the menu on top of the layers, and then you select flatten image. And then I have to just go to select all, edit, define pattern. I'm going to call this one funky. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my original file. I already have a new layer called pattern preview method, and with that new layer selected, I'm just going to go to edit fill, and I will fill this with pattern, and I'm going to use my funky tile, click OK, and then you can see it. So here you can see this is 3x3 inch repeat, but if you wanted to make it smaller, I would use the technique I showed you earlier, which is FX pattern overlay, and then you can reduce the size of the pattern tile if you want it to be smaller. So this is the new feature, and it's really easy to use. So on the handout I gave you, I have several YouTube videos that you can click on to learn even more about this feature. And next we're going to have a look at abstract textures. So sometimes you might have lace, fur, grass, pebbles, tree bark, things like that, and then you want to create a seamless pattern out of it. So how would you do that? So to do that, we're going to use the grass tile that I have, the JPEG. So I'm going to go to grass, open with Photoshop. Here you can see it. So the first thing you have to do is check the size. So I'm going to go to image size, and I can see that it's 800 pixels by 800 pixels, right? So then you have to write that down because we're going to use half of it, which is 400, for some of the steps that we're going to do. So I have 800 pixels by 800 pixels. So the next thing you want to do is you can use the clone stamp tool if you want to fix any of the areas that before you continue. So if I had a bold patch here, I could use Alt Option, click to define pattern to define the target, and then I can just fix that. But in this case, I'm pretty happy and I can continue. So my next step is going to be to go to Filter, Other, Offset. So that's Filter, Other, Offset. So here you're going to do horizontal and vertical offset by 400 pixels. And the reason why it's 400 pixels is because I'm using number that's half of my original size, and my original size was 800 pixels, so half of that would be 400 pixels for the horizontal and 400 pixels for the vertical. Then you're going to click on OK. So this offset my photo 400 by 400, but as a result there's a bit of a cross happening in the middle. So if I defined a pattern out of this, I would sort of have an ugly cross in the middle. So in order to fix it, we're going to use the clone stamp tool. So clone stamp tool, I'm going to define the pattern here. So using Alt Option, I click, and this is my starting my cloning target. Then I will just go here and fix some of these breaks that I had that are a little bit too obvious. And so you should get rid of that cross and make it more blended. So here I made it a little bit more blended. I can make it a little bit more sharp over here. And I'm going to target this and put it over here. So once you're happy with the way the tile looks, you're going to go to select all and go to edit define pattern. I'm going to call this new grass. Okay. Then I'm going to go back to my original file, create a new layer, call it grass. And I'm going to fill this with my new grass. So I'm going to go to edit, fill, pattern, new grass. So if I hover over it with my mouse, it'll actually say new grass. And then I'll click on OK. And now it should look pretty seamless. So you can use this technique again for different abstract textures like fur, for example, and things like that. So next we're going to look at 3 quick ways in which you can change the colorways of your prints. So I'm going to select the pattern preview method print for that demo. I'm going to use the rectangular marquee and select a portion of this artwork and then change the colors. So the first way is easy. You just have to go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation. So as I slide the hue bar, you can see it's changing the colorway. So let's say I want this to be my first colorway and I just click OK. Next, we're going to look at the second way of doing this. So for that, I'm going to select this part here and I'll go to Image, Adjustments, Replace Color. So Image, Adjustments, Replace Color. So I may want to do this for just one color. So Image, Adjustments, Replace Color. With the eyedropper tool, you select the color you wish to replace. So let's say this pink. And then actually let me replace, well actually no, let's just keep that pink. So I select the pink, it shows up here. And then you can double click here and select the different colors. So let's say I actually want it to be green. And then I will click on, let's say this green. Then I will see that color in my result box. Then I will click on OK. And so now I'm ready to go. I click on OK. And then it'll replace that color with the new green color that I have selected. So it's no longer pink, but now it's green. So that's the second method. And then the third method would be to again select the portion you wish to change. And then you're going to go to select color range. Select color range. And so let's say that here I want to select this color here with the eyedropper tool. I pick that. I put the fuzziness to 200. And then I can click on OK. So now the selection is active and the computer has selected that particular color that I chose. Then in the foreground color box, I'm just going to double click here and then premix a new color. So I don't know, let's say this. And then all I have to go is do edit, fill with the foreground color, click on OK, and then the computer will fill with that particular color, and that is my third colorway. So those are 3 different options for you to change your colorways, so you can play around with that. I'm going to redo this one more time because I think I don't want to select too much. The computer also had selected this swirl and I don't want that. So I could go to change the settings. So I'm going to go to select color range. I'm going to sample this color, but I'll slide this lower here so that the swirl will not be selected. Then I will click on OK. And then now I will select, let's say this green. And then if I go to edit fill now, it'll fill with green the colors that I had selected to replace. So that is the third way to change the colorway. So for the practice of this demo, I want you to also create 3 different colorways. So here's 1, here's 2, and then my third colorway here, I only changed the circle. I didn't change anything else, but this is my third colorway here. So next we're going to look at the placement print. So the placement print you don't have to hand in for the demo, but I'll just walk you through it in case if you want to use placement prints for your graduating collections, it's good to know. But for the purpose of this assignment, you just have to hand in the layers grass, pattern preview method with 3 colorways, small eye layer, and then the background, which will have the gradient. So for your placement print, I am going to go to our zip folder and open the dress block. So here's the dress block. So what you would do is scan the pattern or digitize the pattern in, or even just create the pattern from scratch using blocks in Gerber or Pad or Lectra, but at Seneca we have Gerber. Then you're going to export that Gerber file to Illustrator, and then you will be able to open the Illustrator file in Photoshop. You can actually just go File Open, and the Illustrator file will open in Photoshop. Then you're going to fill the outer part with white, and then leave the transparency in the middle of the pattern piece, which in this case is my dress. So next I'm going to go to image size and see what size I have. So I have 22 by 38. So I'm going to want to make sure that my pattern print is that size, meaning it's big enough to fill my dress. So 22 by 38. So I have already made a print that I want to use. So I'm going to go and open it. So the print I want to use is here. And I will just double check the size. It's 222 by 38. So then all I have to do is go to Command All or Command A to select all, then go to Edit Copy. And then I can go back to my dress, select with the magic wand the area of the pattern piece, and then you just have to go to Edit, Paste Special, Paste Into, and so now my print is inside. I can move it a little bit, but I just want to also make sure that it covers my pattern piece properly. And when I'm happy with this, I can just go to Flatten Image so that I've got everything here and it's ready for printing. So now, depending on the print service you're using, they may ask you to provide a TIFF, or they may ask you to provide a JPEG. Usually it's usually JPEG. So if I go to image size, I can just make sure that it's correct size and it's 200 pixels per inch. And then I could even just go to Save As, and then I could just save it as a JPEG. So you have to select JPEG, dress print, so Zoran print, and then I can just save that as a JPEG. I will select maximum quality, and I will click on OK, and then I can send this JPEG to the fabric printing service. The last thing we're going to look in this demo is how you can take a print from Illustrator and how you can actually fill this print inside of a Photoshop illustration or Photoshop technical drawing. So in order to do that, you would first have to create a big tile of this print in Illustrator. So for example, I've done 11 by 17 here. So the first step will be to export it. So I'm going to export it as a JPEG. So I'm going to select JPEG, Fun, Print, Desktop, Export. It's going to ask me for the resolution. So that really depends on your illustration. So if your illustration is 300 pixels, I'm going to export this as a 300 pixels as well. And then I'm going to click OK. And then you will have this ready to be used in Photoshop. So now I will open the illustration inside of which I want to put this print. Then I will select the jacket. So here, 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 and here. And then I'm going to open my exported JPEG. So here's my exported JPEG. Select all, Command C to copy. And then I can go to Edit Paste Special, paste into, and here is my print inside of the jacket. I can go to Command T to reduce the scale to become smaller. And then I will hit Enter when I'm done. So this is just a quick overview of how you can actually create your print in Illustrator and then export it as a JPEG so that you can use it back in Photoshop.